NDC Deputy General Secretary Anyidoho finally gets bail after 48 hours behind bars at the BNI for making alleged treasonable comments. What are the bail conditions? We'll find out shortly on PM Express. You recall Mr. Anyidoho was arrested Tuesday afternoon for comments government said are treasonable. What does this mean to the NDC as a party, its supporters and other politicians? How is Koku faring after the bill? We have all the details for you tonight. Also, the Ghana Police Service says it has begun investigations into the assault of JoyNews' journalist Lateef Idris. Doctors discharged Lateef after he spent 2 nights in the hospital under strict medical observations. Well, this brings back the conversation of how journalists are brutalized in the execution of their duties and what has been done all this while by those concerned. I'm talking about the GJA, the NMC, Media Foundation for West Africa and the other stakeholders, and how professional and cooperative the police has been in collaborating with the media. My guests are already seated. I'll introduce them after this break. Welcome back. My guest tonight, Victor Kojoga Adaudo, is a private legal practitioner and lawyer for Koku Anyidoho. Also in the studio is Ken Ashigwe, CEO of Telecoms Chamber. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And it's good news tonight that Koku is out and he'll be sleeping in his house today. I'll start with you, Victor. We all know how you were optimistic that he was going to be out by, as early as yesterday, but that didn't happen. But we're also hearing that you had a very tough time getting him out today.
Yes, first of all, let me say good evening to our viewers and good evening to all the citizens. Let me use this opportunity to thank everybody, the police, the BNI, all the supporters and people who really stood by us. At the end of the day, we were able to get the bill for Koku. And it's good news. I'm happy because today is a holy Thursday and we will start to celebrate the Easter festivity with the family. And I'm sure that the power of resurrection would always make us redefine our ways and commune with our God. Now, getting the bill for Koku, I was optimistic that we will get a bill because if you look at what has been stipulated by the Constitution, that within 48 hours when you are arrested and statement is taken, the facts, you should be put before the court within 48 hours or after 48 hours. If that is not done, then you have to be granted bail. So because the fact, the statements that have been taken, and we have not been charged with any offense of the others. What we were being investigated for is an offense of treason. It's different from the charge statement itself. So I realized that they won't have time to go through the process to charge us and put us before a court because they will still be doing their investigations. So I knew definitely the only option they had was to grant us the bail. Bail is normally a contract between the state and the suspect. Or actually not the suspect, the sureties. Because the sureties will give an assurance to the states that we will stand surety, we will make sure the person comes before the police or the court. And if the person does not come, we the sureties will now be called upon to produce the person. If we are not able, the sum or the money that will be imposed on you, you would have to pay that to the state.
Okay.
So we started negotiating. When after 48 hours, we started negotiating the bill. And it was back and forth because the terms they wanted to impose on. We were also negotiating with them. And finally, we agreed that they should produce 2 eminent citizens, people who everybody will know that those are people who have been in public service. Those are people who everybody will vouch for. It's a tall order in the sense that these are people who will guide their reputation. These are people who will not do anything just to put their reputation online. So we put our heads together when we had at least 2 as they requested, and the bill was granted.
So in his case, how much was paid?
No, there was no money. Even reputation is priceless.
It's priceless.
It's priceless. So if they had even put some money, you have been able to say, oh, I'll provide this in lieu of their money. But for somebody's reputation, to get somebody like that. But thank God we were able to do it, and we have agreed as terms of the condition that on Tuesday, we will go before the police to show ourselves, and they will tell us what will be the next line of action. Well,
very good news there to the NDC and all the people who are in love with Koku. Let me gauge your mood, Mr. Kenashigbe. And this arrest of Koku has resurrected the discussion of how responsible the media should be in, for instance, guarding against some of these comments by their interviewees. From where you sit, do you think that the media has failed in its role?
Let me say that all I have heard is basically what has happened, the playbacks that have been done on especially Joy FM, and I think maybe a little bit on CTFM. I've not listened to everything what went on before the statement and you know exactly on Happy FM, but I would have expected that a journalist worth its salt would have stopped that statement where it was going. But you could see that rather what he did, and you see, and I'm still careful that it is only that portion I listened to, was virtually cajoling him to get that out. And the tendency for that to happen in our media is, I think we overplay it. The whole thing of getting, and it's the NDC and the MPP putting their heads together just to create a lot of heat without fire. There's too much of that happening. And we need to realize the fact that our country is bigger than just partisanship. That it is the development of this nation that we want, and we should be able to start getting our journalism into that end. We've been doing this thing since 1992, and by now we should start getting into another mode. The challenge when you have something to do with zoology is the NDC and MPP you would call. When you have something on archaeology, they are the people you would call, has to change. And we need to start getting our journalism to drive the challenges we have. Poverty, squalor. I know all of those things have politics within it, but it's not all the time that it has to be this hot partisanship. And so that's what I would say, just taking it from the little I listened to.
Okay, so Koku himself, a journalist, should have guarded against making such a comment. And the presenter was also leading him on. He could have, read between the lines, but he gave himself out at that point. But also, on this responsibility that an interviewer should make sure that your interviewee does not, toe that line, and it becomes a bit difficult because you're not able to read the minds of people, and you don't know what he's about to say, and so sometimes before you say Jack, he's dropped it. How do we control some of these things?
You see, for professional journalism, one of the things that is missing in everything we do is delayed broadcast. It's one of the things that we've pushed for, but we've not just done it, because, we are all of us. And sometimes you also have to blame the listeners. They tend to like that. But are you going to say because people want drugs, you're going to feed that to them? So for us as journalists, we owe a responsibility to ourselves, to the state, and to everybody to be able to control that conversation. If I go back again to what I listened to, that went on for a bit. If he really wanted to pull back, he would have pulled back. But you could see that, yes, he wanted that to happen, and then kept that going, and that's what happened. And the responsibility definitely is on the interviewer and the interviewer as well.
Both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at how some journalists conduct themselves these days, and like you said, do you think because the public want this, so that's what you're going to give? Can't you sieve it and give them what is necessary? What do you think is accounting for this kind of journalism this time?
You see, the challenge we have is, well, I'm not really sure whether it's just this time, but the challenge we have is that we are focusing a lot on audience, share and audience growth, and what can we do to get people listening to us. And I think sometimes too, because in this our market, there's not a lot of research being done. So advertisers themselves also are not too sure what the quality of even the audiences that we're following are. Programmers themselves also do not know real time what is bringing them the audiences and all of that. So all we want to do is, what can we do to get this audience, to get this numbers? And this inordinate chase for the audience, inordinate chase for advertising is what is creating the problem. If you were in a market where we would be able to read based on research, you know that, okay, when this is done, you don't get the quality of audience I want. So for me as an advertiser, I won't put my money behind this. A lot of these things will change. But another thing is that, you see, when we got the liberalization of the airwaves, unfortunately, there was not enough time to really train a lot of us, in terms of the nuances of the job. Some people were even picked in early days. He's good at emceeing at a program, and he's pulled on and brought on online. The quality of our production is a problem. So,
but we've come a long way.
Yes.
Hasn't that changed?
Unfortunately, it's not, because the number of stations keep multiplying, and and the talent pool is not really growing. And another thing is that the marketing budget is also not growing. So you have a lot of owners of media houses that are not able to invest into the talent that they are going to get, invest into training of the people that are going to be able to man these programs and all of that, and that really is suffering, especially in the local language area, where most of the times quality is sacrificed to the dogs.
It's interesting, and of course, to get to know that the one who got himself into trouble himself is a journalist, and he ought to know what he was being led into. He didn't take guard. Let's listen to Koku, his first interview after he was granted bail.
We thank God. I mean, the law had to work based on some information out there. And so the police did their job professionally, and I want to congratulate them and thank them, the CID unit led by DCOP Mamitiwa Adodankwa. And so here we are, my lawyers, the BNI director and his people, and of course the other men who you can see them here. And so we thank God, and at least Ghana is working.
Were you comfortable all through?
Interesting experience. But let me say for the records, I was not manhandled at any point in time. No, not by the CID, not by the BNI. I was not manhandled at any point in time.
How about food-wise? I mean, was the meal good?
You want to know?
I want to know.
We'll discuss that later.
The other issue was the support.
No, it was good. No, for the record, just for the media, it was good. It was good.
The other issue is the support from your party supporters, other sympathizers. Was it something that you were even aware of in the first place?
As Deputy General Secretary of the party, I didn't doubt the fact that we had a support base and we believe in comradeship and camaraderie. But what happened in the last 2 days has been excellent, exciting. We thank the grassroots, we thank everybody. Former President Dramani Mahama, the party chairman, General Secretary, leadership in Parliament, of course, the lawyers, and everybody. We thank God.
The statement, any regrets?
Which statement?
All right, so it's interesting that he granted Joseph Akable his last interview before he was picked by the police, and fortunately he's the first to be granted the interview. That's very interesting over there, but you could tell that he's in good spirit, and that's good. Council, you talked about the conditions, and you're supposed to be there on Tuesday. What are the conditions that you're supposed to meet?
I think the condition that we negotiated and agreed on was the two eminent citizens who stood at. So nothing was attached.
Okay, so we know about General Anyidoho.
I think I would want to disclose that.
Okay.
Yes, a lot of people came to visit. People were there to, not really to say solidarize of what was done, but just to show some support and say that we are with you. In good times, we'll be with you. In difficult times, we'll be with you. That is to say that people who showed their support or came, we have not actually listened to the tape, because I've seen some comments and things that are going on in the social media, the print media, electronic media. That is what is attributed to him. And I've always said that if we get it from the sister station, that is the proper custody, and we analyze it and see that what was said was inappropriate. We are human beings. We are infallible. We could say, yes, we wanted to communicate something, but the language was inappropriate. But to add to what my senior brother here had said, I think that journalism, it's the fourth realm of the estate.
Definitely so.
It is a noble profession that I've always said that there are some professions, if you think that we are going in because of the benefits that will come with it, yes, everybody will work because of money. You will not be able to make it.
Definitely.
It is the passion.
Yes.
It's the passion. I know journalism.
One of the jobs is journalism.
Yes. One of the jobs is journalism. One, it's law. If you don't have that passion to achieve excellence, to do an in-depth reading, research, you will be so shallow.
Right.
Now, when it is shallow, the content is shallow. That is when people think that anything that is sensational or factionalism will put it on would sell. So you see the crave now that people want to put all kinds of things in the media and believe that we are chasing the listenership and people come. But the cardinal job that has been given to the media is to be the watchdogs of society.
Right.
But what are we seeing now? They're becoming the guard dogs for the politicians. They're becoming the guard dogs for the captains of industries. You know, so instead of doing the research, the content that would come, where you will get the listenership and say, this is a credible news. This is an in-depth that would educate you. People now shy away because there are some of the things they don't want to. A typical one that I would say is some of us who communicate most of the time, especially the local, they will call you and say, did you hear this person from this party said this? When you've not even heard what was said.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Okay.
You know, and sometimes I would say, I wasn't there. I haven't even read it. So what do you expect me to comment on?
Okay.
I can't comment on that.
Right.
So I think, as he said, the training. And I always say, within the four corners of the classroom, it's what they teach you is a rudiment, but you need to build upon yourself. It's one of the professions that when you look at the media, the in-depth of knowledge that comes out, I even sometimes you listen to some people who are, you wonder and say, wow, this is a journalist.
Right.
And one of the, had always said some standard that we should always look at. I enjoyed one interview, it was on DW.
Right.
When President Mahama traveled, I think, to Germany, and the guy put him on the spot.
On the spot, yes.
Everything was accurate, his research and everything.
Yeah.
I sat down and said, wow.
Yeah.
I think that should be what we should aspire to.
So,
That is not to forget also that, yes, it might not pay. But the trend has also changed with the pluralism of the airwaves. What do you see? Now you see the politicians, because they have the control over the National Communication Authority, the licensing and others.
Yes.
Most of them are the people who own it. Nobody says it is wrong to own a radio station. But you know, the way they influence and they want the bidding to be done, I think that is wrong.
That is wrong.
Nobody says you cannot owe it. You apply, you get it. but the content. Because at the end of the day, it benefits society.
Okay.
When society becomes very learned, society is well informed. There are things that you don't even need to control or have the people to police. They will know that their sanction regime, this is wrong, this is right. I think that is where we need to step up the plate.
That's where we need
and
to
we'll be able, and it is only the journalist or the fourth estate that can make the difference between the political parties. There will be no way if the media compromises itself and we think that the politicians, the parties, they will enjoy it, they will milk upon it. Because
I think that you're making a very valid point, but of course.
But if they decide to drive, we saw what happened within the Galamsey. When the media said we are going to lead this attack, how many politicians have you seen rearing their heads saying that, oh, this concession is mine, or I have my relatives here,
exactly,
or these are my constituents?
Exactly the point.
You don't see, because they know if we try anything, we'll be exposed.
Will be exposed.
That is the thing that we need.
So, of course, we should not forget our mandate of putting government on its toes, being watchdog for the community and ensuring that the politicians do the right thing. That also doesn't erase the fact that the politicians themselves must be responsible. And, of course, considering the fact that a lot of people look up to them, if they are parliamentarians, they are ministers, they are who, their constituents and the people who vote them are looking up to them, and that's the reason why they must be very responsible. I mean, they shouldn't wait for the media to, guard them in what what comes out of.
Sometimes it's the opposite of it. The little experience I've had in politics is that I wonder, at first I used to wonder why you see somebody learned, respected, and you think that the utterances that comes out of their mouth, you sit behind and say, excuse my language, excuse my French. Is it in his right sense?
Sure.
Right? But I've come to appreciate that they say that, or they speak because they speak to a particular constituency.
Okay.
There's a particular constituency that enjoys
that kind of language.
And for their constituency, I'm not talking about constituency, but people, a group who has vested interest, that is what they enjoy. And they expect more. So when they go, they say, oh, Honorable,
you spoke very well.
This is what we like.
The fire was, you were on
you
fire.
Understand? I only want to give some example. But I may offend some sensibility. But it is one of the things I used to enjoy those days. It might not be appropriate. But one of the things that attracted me much to the NDC and maybe Rollins, his antics, and when he speaks the passion, the constituency he appeals to say, oh man, you understand?
Okay. So what does this bill mean to the NDC? What cue are we supposed to learn from this kind of what happened to Koku and all the controversy surrounding it? Let's take a listen to one of the executives of the NDC, Kofi Adams.
We are even more emboldened to continue to raise the wrongs, and we are going to continue doing it. We will fight and speak against this occupation of foreign forces in our land. We will make sure the sovereignty of Ghana is protected. We will make sure that President Akufo-Addo does what is right, and we will insist that the right thing is done. Let's together continue to fight for the good of this country. We did not vote for President Akufo-Addo to do what he is doing. He should not continue deceiving himself that he is still as popular as he was when they used lies to get the votes of the people on the 7th of December 2016. We assure him that we will give him the right opposition that he deserves. He also will want to thank the media for the interest you showed in the incarceration that you considered to be illegal. For those of you media persons who also suffered beatings and slaps in trying to report the wrong that was being done, we want to say we sympathize with you.
So that was Kofi Adams. In all of that, he's also sympathizing with journalists who had their fair share of the beating when they tried to get information on what was happening. And Mr. Shibe, that's where I'm coming to you, that it's becoming too of many that we're seeing journalists execute their jobs. I mean, Lateef Idris was only gathering information to report to the public exactly what was happening, and he was met with this brutality. The police knew that he was a journalist, but they continued to inflict that pain on him as if he was a criminal. How does all of this strike you?
Well, it's one of my biggest pains. You see, as somebody who has been a manager for media, and you send journalists in to go and cover stories, you know, and these things keep happening. You know, Obama says that journalism is the only profession where you're beating in the course of your duty. And for me, that lies the pain. That it is when our people are doing the job that they are paid to do that they are beating. The NDC have beaten journalists. The NPP have beaten journalists. You go to court, the witness, the friends of suspects would beat you up. There's a story, the stories of pastors who are even beating journalists. Efia Pokua was beaten up by public servants.
What crime did we ever commit?
I mean? So there's too much of that happening, and I think enough is enough. And we need to, and I think it's also because we the journalists were complicit. The police, if you attack a police in doing his job, he would defend himself with what me and you, our taxpayers' money, have been given to him. The military would. The lawyers even would. They will come at you with the law.
Yeah.
But we journalists, what do we do? We just sit quietly
and watch.
And this thing keeps perpetuating itself.
Forgetting that the pen is a very strong weapon.
Mightier, but it is, you let a policeman have issues. He will run to the journalist and will defend him. So
even nowadays, even if people's lights go off, they call media houses as if we work with them.
So it is time that as journalists and as managers of journalists and as journalist organization, we stand up and say enough of this. We need to start protecting our own. We need to start using legal means to be able to ask for change. For this particular one like that, the GJA has issued a statement, but it is not enough. We need to ensure that the IGP, I'm sure that if you go to the CID headquarters, there will be CCTV cameras there. They should be able to investigate this, and we should push to make sure that some action is taken. The fortunate thing is that there's no time back for crime. We should be able to go back. I've created a page of Stop Beating Media, and I was trying to do some research on people who have been beaten. You go far back, it's been done. People have even lost their life. Fortunately for us in Ghana, since '92, only one person has lost his life. But the amount of beating is too much.
It's too much.
And we need, so the GJA, I was speaking to the president of the GJA that it's about time we started a roll call of being able to item every journalist who's been beaten and find ways of protecting them. But also a role of shame. Those people who supervise the beating, those people who actually perpetuate this. We need to be able to make sure that is done.
Haven't we gotten to the point where institutions such as GJA, NMC must, stay away from becoming statement issuing institutions and actually do something concrete to stop some of these
Definitely, it's time that now we form the CPJ or the Journalists Without Borders in this our country, where we can get lawyers who would want to support our cause, so that we would go beyond just issuing statements. What have statements done for us? It's done nothing. We will go beyond the issuance of statement and start taking legal action. We will go beyond the point where we say that if you are a group that you've been beating us, all of us as media, we're going to black out on you. Right. We need to get to the point where we start also, if we say this is where those publishing houses and media owners, we need to start putting money aside for insurance to make sure that people who go through such pain, we find ways of rehabilitating them. We need to go to the point where we start hitting people where really they'll feel it in their pockets. Make sure that we go to court. If we don't win in Ghana, we go to the international court to ensure that this thing has to stop.
It has to
How
stop.
long are we going to endure this? And I wonder how people sleep.
And I thought the media was free. I mean, we say we have media freedom now,
also
and we
as
celebrate
journalists, we are part of it.
Yes.
One of the things that got my fingers burned when I went to Graphic was following one of a journalist who was beating up. I went to court with him. It was in court that he said that he had withdrawn the case because of some sickness. And I remember that thing where, you know, legal action was taken at Graphic. We went to the NMC. The NMC itself then asked for the person to be reinstated. We need to let our journalists know that when somebody beats you, criminal actions, you don't go solving them at home. Let's make sure that the laws work. If we do that and people are sanctioned, now they know that there's no repercussion for it.
Yeah.
They know that when journalists, when you beat them or you
nothing will happen.
Nothing would happen. And so we need, and I'm hoping that multimedia, you would follow this thing. I'm not just going to report to the police and leave it. I'm not too sure. Because all of us as media, there's nobody I can trust. Yeah. I don't think any of us have really been, if we had done that, we will not be where we are.
At least we followed up on a fierce case and we had.
You got what, a paltry 2,000 or 1,000?
7,500.
Is that, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying, that we need to be more frontal than we're doing. Most of the time it's as if we don't want to rock the boat. But this is the life. There's one journalist in Graphic, Victor Kwakume. He was beating up when he had gone to cover, you know, some arrest. He's lost his sense of smell. How are you going to pay for that? All we could do for him is to pay him workman compensation. But the police people who did that since the death of Kamal, the original minister, he was trying to resolve it. Yes, for Kamal. You know, the case died. But we should not allow these cases to go cold. So for me, I'm asking all of us, journalists, GJA, everybody, we need to come together and form a strong force. But we also need to elicit the soul and minds of our listeners. Right. That is where we need to ensure that for us as journalists, we are responsible in our journalism. Because unfortunately, when the Constitution review was done, you know that there were people who actually were saying that they should bring the criminal libel law back again.
Wow.
Because some of us journalists, we also, you know, use the media to do very irresponsible things. But I would want to say that the cure for the irresponsibility of a journalist is not beating him.
It's not beating.
I don't know how many doctors we have beaten because they are irresponsible. I don't know how many politicians we have beaten because they are irresponsible.
And in most of the instances, we are not even being irresponsible.
Was Latif being irresponsible?
He wasn't. He was just inquiring from the police officer some information. Counsel, you can interpret the law better than the two of us here. Tell us, do you also, from the law point of view, think or believe with or join with those who think the police has been unprofessional and unlawful?
Yes, I've always said that it was an unfortunate situation and regrettable that even if you watch from the foreign news, at the forefront of war, where it is deemed that nobody could go, you could see anytime the media or the press, even whilst in the heat of the force, they are protected.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it is believed that they would bring us the information, the news, whether good or bad. It beats my mind, why would people want to beat journalists? So what does it tell you? It means they know they are doing something wrong, which will be exposed. So they don't want that to be exposed.
So they're protecting it.
So they want to protect it. I believe such people, as he said, you need to name and shame them and demonize them. And the media has that power.
Yeah.
You know, and if the person persistently knows that what he's doing, he will be demonized, his family, his wife, his children, and you know, you are given some name. And this is credible, it's checked, and the fact, I'm sure such people would turn on a new leaf and said, this is what happened to this person. And you know, we need the media, the people who will not want you to have some information. Some they will tell you it's classified information. So why do you want classified information? I've always said, I don't believe that there's anything classified. No. There's anything that is confidential. When it is right, and the process, you show it to anybody, there's nothing classified.
Whether confidential,
whether confidential. Why confidential?
The truth remains.
You don't want people to see it because you believe there is something in there that will egg or rake emotions, so you don't want it. And I believe it is time that we learn with our security, information management. If there was a place where they could get information, access to information, I don't think that this will all go on. That's why it gets to a point to say right to information.
Exactly.
Why would we be paying our public officers or public when they have the information and they don't want to give it to us? It beats my imagination. Then we have not subscribed to a democratic society. In as much as on paper we pride ourselves with our democratic credential, why are we not ready to let information flow? Because the flow of information, and I think beating journalists and others, the GJA itself should stand and speak eloquently. You know, you can blacklist the people, and when you start against them, I think the media always say it has a powerful tool that you have that the media itself is not using. Yeah. That is not to say that you malign and defame people, but if you bring the facts, facts are sacred.
Definitely.
If you bring the facts and you say it and you shame the people, you would even realize that they will now come and be trying to compromise and say that, oh, you know, I'm sorry, can we do it this way? Can we do it this way? I think the media has that power.
We have that power, and a lot of the times you see the media using that power to defend other people, but not for ourselves. I'll take a break on PM Express. When we come back, we'll look at how we can avoid some of these things. Welcome back to PM Express. So we're still talking. Koku granted bail. Latif Ridri still on sick leave because he was brutalized by the police in his quest to search for information to inform the public. And we also mentioned some institutions that must be up to their game. We talked about the GJA, we talked about the NMC Media Foundation for West Africa. Let's listen to the the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa.
The issue of safety of journalists is one that has captured global attention. And so, for example, this year's World Press Freedom Day, which is being hosted in Ghana, a critical part of the day is dedicated to discussing issues of safety of journalists. But you're also right that when journalists are attacked and the perpetrators are not punished or even investigations are not conducted, the consequence is that it emboldens the perpetrators and also get other people to think that it's fine to attack or abuse journalists. And that is why the focus on safety of journalists also includes, measures to counter impunity for crimes against journalists. And I think that is one growing phenomenon here in Ghana. In the last few years, we have had several incidents of journalists who have been abused, and very, very few, if any, examples or instances where we have seen perpetrators being punished. We can recount quite a number of them. And that is why, for example, when this incident happened at the MPP headquarters last December, we took it up and decided that we wanted to follow it to the end. And you can also recall what we did when a former presidential staffer, Stan Dogbe, abused a journalist. I think what we need to do collectively is to mobilize ourselves as a media community to always insist and demand for redress to some of these issues. I am quite disappointed that when these developments happen, it is the civil society organizations, individuals, the journalism groups that you mentioned, who sometimes will issue statements and try to follow up. But the journalists themselves and the media organizations themselves, what the best they do is just to republish the statements that we have put together. Yet one would say, well, it would be extreme to say that because of what happened, the media community in Ghana should boycott whatever the Ghana Police Service would do. But I think that if it's something that continues, then that is the point that we have to get to. But would we really get the buy-in from the media? If the Media Foundation, for example, were to say that, look, if the police service does not address this particular issue, investigate it thoroughly, and punish those who perpetrated this violent attack on the journalist, the media in Ghana should boycott the Ghana Police Service. Without it will work.
There are concerns that journalists themselves do not take precautionary measures during when they're executing their duties. How do you think that journalists can avoid some of these attacks?
It's important that every media organization would have a safety of journalists policy, for example. And that policy would also require that journalists are trained on safety mechanisms. How do you protect yourself whilst at the same time making sure that you are getting the right news or right information during a rowdy situation or a situation of violence, such as what happened on the day when Kwaku Anyidoho was arrested? I think that, of course, we all realize that under the circumstances, it wasn't a normal situation like going to cover a party rally or a party congress, you know. But even during such moments, party congress and so on and so forth, you still have to go in there as a journalist with the mindset that anything can happen. And should anything happen, what would be your steps towards, you know, guaranteeing that you are safe? And it's one area that I also think that as a media community, we have to enhance our capacity in there.
So that was Suleiman Ibrahima, who I spoke with earlier. He was very passionate about how the media should champion this cause and stop the police and other people from brutalizing journalists in the course of their duty. Let me come back to you, Counsel. And we've all agreed that the police, we've officially launched a report to the police, and we're expecting, the police has assured us that they're going to investigate the matter. But what have we seen over the years? The police investigating their own colleagues, it doesn't work, and we really are not sure if we'll get something concrete from the police. But apart from this official report, can he take a civil action against the Ghana Police Service or the people who brutalized him?
Why not? I think that law says that we are all equal before the law. Article 17 says that we are equal before the law. If a police officer offends you, or does something you think is wrong, why wouldn't you be able to sue him in his personal capacity? You have the liberty, you have the right to sue him. So far as you can sue him in his personal capacity, you can identify him, you know his number, you know where he works and other things. You can always sue him. Normally, you know, it used to be the law at that time. If you want to sue any of the officers, they will tell you, you have to sue me through the IGP. And I always tell them that is the old position of the law.
What's the new position?
The new position is that we are all equal
before the law.
So the law doesn't even state that if I want to sue you because you work in a public service, I have to go to your head. It's not. I can sue you directly. Because maybe what you were doing, you were not in the course of your employment. It was not in the course of your duties. It is outside. This one, like this, the Latif one, yes, it was in the course of their duty. Was there any provocation? Maybe he might be inquiring for information. Has he violated? If he hasn't violated any of the rules, he hasn't done anything, and he thinks, why not? Let the person come and say that I was under instruction. And who gave that instruction that you did? So there are things sometimes we take for granted. You should be able to pursue. But you know, more and of the time, we don't do it. We just talk about it and we leave it. As Suleiman Ibrahima was saying that the media community itself should be able to right the wrongs and say, for this particular issue on this, we are boycotting all activities of this particular institution. So it doesn't happen that one media station is doing, then you see the other sister. I always have some thing that I have learned from the law profession, irrespective of our differences. If anything happens to a lawyer, you would see all of them coming together. And we have a kind of seniority. We can be the same mates, the one who is called first before the other. It's respect.
You respect
Even
that
before when
hierarchy.
you go to court, when you don't take permission from your senior, you cannot speak. I think that it should be something that the Ghana Journalists Association should itself borrow and learn to make the association
Stronger.
a strong one, that it can speak, and if it says that this is what we are going to do to defend our members,
You have no reason to
you have no
depart
reason
from it.
to doubt. But when there's the divide and rule within, and everybody feels there's that inferiority and superiority complex within the association itself, I don't think this is what we would always see.
Mr. Ashebe, we heard from Suleiman Ibrahim. He talked about when you're going to such scenes, it's not the normal duty, it's a crisis situation, and so you, the journalist yourself, must take precaution. He talked about how we should guard against, doing things that will lead us into that attack. What else can we do as journalists so we don't find ourselves in this kind of situation?
Well, see, it's an art, and if you look at the BBC handbook, they actually have a handbook preparing you for, if you're going to a difficult assignment. I remember, Komla was one of the places that Komla had to go to, and the handbook is this thick, So we ourselves as media and media owners and media association, we need to start training our journalists. I remember our graphic, we had to, I think multimedia tweeted that during election times, we, the last one graphic, we brought some police people, some military people to come and train us to prepare us. So it's some kind of training that we need to start providing for our people. We need to also be able to, you find out that when journalists go into the war front, they are properly attired so that it's easy for you to be able to see them. So if it is not an assignment you're going to cover that you need to be covert, then it is good for you to be overtly seen that this person is media, so that when it comes to attack, or if there's something going, at least the police then can protect you. So we need to do all of this engagement. But yes, as we do the internal engagement, we also need to be seen to be militant when it comes to defending our own, and we need to use everything and anything that is in our power. We need to be able to, and I hope that the IGP, and I trust he will do a good job. But if he doesn't do it, we need. I would go as far as saying that we should be able to get to a point where we decide to say, if this is what you're going to do,
we'll
then
blacklist
we won't publish anything you do.
Well, that's all time will allow us. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ken Ashibe is the Chief Executive of the Telecom Chambers, and Victor Kojoga Adawudu is lawyer for Kwaku Anyidoho, and we've been talking about the bail of Kwaku Anyidoho and also the assault of our own journalist Lateef Idris. And we've all agreed on one thing: journalists have a strong platform. Let's use it. Let's build a strong force, and for the politicians, be responsible in your comments. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. God willing, tomorrow we'll be here doing it all over again. Have a great one.